from their encounters with races from other planets. The information is the activation. Let's awaken this world together. We are the forever students, and we will not be silent. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. It's pretty wild. Welcome, everybody, to Full Spectrum Universe. My name is Rob Yox. We're the embattled broadcast that examines the past to remain in the present, to dictate the terms of our future. Welcome, everybody. We have an amazing show for you this evening. Tonight, we're going to be talking about dimensional infusion. Some of this is taken from the book called The Prisms of Lyra. And we're going to actually dive into this book big time because this book is a gateway into the greater galactical implications of the energies that we are residing in and the dimensional densities that we're residing in at this very moment. The first 7 come to mind when we think of this. Please like, share, subscribe. Also leave a comment when this is finished. How's everybody doing tonight? Everybody having a good time? We're here. The family is back. I see Rob Weber. Stephanie, great to see you back. King of Kings, Stone Hobbit, the 10 people that are watching at this moment and more piling in. So one of the things that I've been doing is I've been trying to examine how we can talk about energy. Peg, good to see you. And essentially keep it in the now, right? Keep it in the now, but show the greater implication of how this energy works, what makes it work, and how we in this reality interact with this energy, right? With this dimensional energy. And a lot of that comes from the soul itself. Now, the soul or consciousness, which can be interchangeable, which can be 2 separate components, however you see it, there is a amassed energy that resides within us. And this energy is effectively connected to the etherical self, the auric self, the light body, the chakras, the consciousness, the energy centers. It's connected everywhere. So one of the things I felt like we should do is, again, we talked about going back to basics a little bit, but this isn't so much basics. This is a little bit of the advanced intermediary between basic and advanced, right? This is somewhere in between. It's where I believe this resides. And I think it's going to be an amazing way to get into what we know and kind of give a nice cap on what we've been doing with energies and then talking about the past and, some of the hidden histories that we have as well. This also sees the way that the universe was created in a bit of a different light. And I thought that it was exceptional in the sense that we should bring this to bear, right? We've already talked about galactical histories. What is the galactical histories? We have an entire 18-part series on this channel called Galactic Beginnings. And we talk about the unity consciousness and the unity consciousness essentially exploding into the mother and the father. And that basically the masculine and the feminine energies and how they coincide to create the next levels of human, right? Or the genomes of 48 type DNA, things like that. So we're getting into a lot of different extraterrestrial, but also terrestrial information when we talk about this stuff. So I'm really excited to get into it, and I'm not going to waste any more time, but I'm glad to see everybody here. Also, I wanted to make an announcement. We're going to be dropping the next energetic workshop very, very soon. I think I should have it in about a week or so. We're going to get a little bit more information that I've been diving into to cipher it through the actual workshop itself. We also are going to be exploring a new show on Rumble as well, which is going to be talking about politics and the spirit of freedom. Most people here may not be into that, but if you are into a little bit of the 40-foot view as well as the 40,000-foot view, we're going to be implying both. I'm going to be joined by a co-host on that show. It's going to be an absolute amazing time. I'm also going to be doing a Portal to Ascension event coming up in December, and we'll go over that a little bit too, so we can help promote the cause, because Neil is one of our brothers. Omar will be there as well, a host of other people. With that, all that being said, please keep an eye out for some of these announcements coming up into the future. Well, let's get into the meat and potatoes of tonight's episode, right? So we're talking about dimensional infusion. Dimensional infusion is epic. When we talk about this, it's going to blow your mind from the way that we really get into this. So, from Earth's earliest days and the recorded Earth history, there has been a bittersweet emotion that wells up within us as we gaze into the expanse of the night sky. Some of us long for the day when the human race can travel beyond those stars. And it's really just a hope for a future rather than the remembrance of our past. So we talk about the human consciousness and the intricacies that still remain unexplored. What stirs us to push evolution to its limits? What drives us to create dissension between the races of our planet and others, of course, of extraterrestrial life? Perhaps it's possible that we're playing out a cosmic drama and only temporarily forgotten the script. We know that one country or race does, you know, upon Earth, they all affect each other. This idea may also spread outward into the universe. One race may affect another race. One planet may affect another planet. One universe may affect one universe. One multidimensional reality may affect another multidimensional reality. Perhaps what we do here affects countless civilizations on other planets. Could we really link all of that together? One of the most important ideas to accelerate the human potential is the allowance of all truths to be manifested of the one truth, whatever it may be. Through this allowance emerges what we call unification. And we talk about this at length on this program, the unification. How do we get to the unification? We know that 2022 was the year of the truth seeker. We know that 2023 was those moments that we essentially explored in 2022, giving us fruit to bear to seek these truths. Now in 2024 is going to be the great divergence. And this great divergence essentially shows those who are of the enlightened and those who are not of the enlightened sort of parting ways. But again, in 2025 and 2026, there's going to be the great unification, or the great reunification, where everybody will be able to come back together, no matter the race, the color, the creed, it does not matter. What's going to happen is society will prosper from this moment and move forward. How can I say that with such great emphasis and such, I guess, as if I know what it is already, right? Because I can feel it. It's not so much seeing it, I can feel it. We have come down this ascension path, this awakening path, to essentially explore who we are. And those coming into their own, knowing who they are the ones that are going to lead the charge for the rest of those who are falling behind to sort of get into that moment, right? And to sort of grasp that moment and what that moment really means. And that's the fruit to bear. The work that we've done is setting a precedent for people to move forward on. And because of that precedent, we're going to see some who are utterly opposed to what we're saying and what we're doing. But that's okay. That's their right. That's their inherent freedom to do so. What's going to happen is we're going to set the example. And by setting that example, they're going to see what they're missing out on. And that's going to be the great unifier. And that great unifier is going to bring us into a Star Trek like future where there is a planetary alignment of the people at large, not government bodies, not programs or things like that. The people's will, the people at large will come together to again look out for one another. We will reconstitute what it means to be a global community. We will reconstitute what it means for everybody to be a part of the global consciousness or the collective consciousness. And from that moment, it will propel us into the stars. And when it propels us into the stars, we will meet those like us, but yet not like us. Energetically like us, but then again, energetically not like us. And it's okay to have the individual energy and still be a part of the collective. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring that love to these other places, these other planets, these other civilizations. And again, we're going to set the precedent to unify. And it's going to take some time, maybe thousands of years, but we will make it happen because it's what we believe. It's what we are manifesting by understanding how reality works. And that's what dimensional infusion is essentially going to help us to succeed in, by understanding how our consciousness essentially goes back and forth in these dimensional densities and these dimensional realities, and how we can take some from each one and work within each one to bode the future where we dictate the terms. That's why this is important. So I did go off on a bit of a tangent. Let's get back to what we're saying here. So this is what we know. All consciousness and energy was once fused into the integrated whole. This whole was aware of aspects of itself, but in a different way from individualized consciousness. In Earth's present development, the self recognized first, then society, and finally the whole, all that is or God. Separation is created. This separation from the source is an illusion. This illusion is a tool that provides the whole with the necessary lessons and challenges it needs to experience in order to reintegrate back into the source. Before this fragmentation from source, the whole existed in another octave of dimensional reality. From this realm of unification, portions of all that is wandered or wondered what it would be like to be fragmented and temporarily forget the integrated existence. So, the force of this specific thought on such a mass level began to create a fragmentation. The illusion created from this fragmentation would be challenging forgetfulness in which the consciousness would need to create, and from its own divine nature, nonetheless. But the remembrance to once again bring us back to a united state. So the term creation is indeed this fragmentation, or more descriptively, the dimensional infusion. So the whole initial curiosity about a fragmented existence actually created this reality itself. It required a shift in perspective, focus, and frequency. As a part of the whole, aspects of the galactic family were partially responsible for laying out the blueprint that was to guide their development. Therefore, the statement, we are God, actually has viable meaning. Now, again, there is God, but when we say we are God, we're talking about this in the way of manifestation and creation, not that we are the God, right? This is little g God, not big G God, if you know what that means. So, as we take a breath for a moment, the blueprint that was laid out contained many different ideas. It first held the notion that polarity and fragmentation would be the norm. The encoding in the blueprint provided the option of free will on the part of each fragment or soul. The challenge was in remembering that each consciousness possessed it. So the more free will is used, the more divine memory is invoked. When faced with the polarized reality, free will becomes the liberator. When a soul forgets it possesses free will, the lessons become much more challenging, yet it would be quite rewarding. once we realized that free will was ours to behold. So, another idea present in this chosen blueprint was that fragments of the whole would be entirely responsible for their actions during this state of amnesia. Whether or not it was remembered, every action taken would generate a response from the universe. Some have called this karma. However, it's much more than an eye for an eye. Instead of being punished or punishments for negative behavior, there's always the option of expanding one's awareness. Therefore, in a sense, wisdom erases karma. Pretty wild, right? That's a wild one. So, though this may sound like the rules for some kind of cruel cosmic game, the outcome has already been decided. With this in mind, it's not necessarily the destination that counts, but the journey along the way. It's literally how the game is played. Now, getting into the basis of these blueprints, there is not just one. And another blueprint agreed to was the etherically generated code built into the fabric of the universal tapestry. This code would allow bipedal carbon based humanoid forms to be the normal, naturally developing vehicle for the incarnation of a human type consciousness on planetary structures. This code exists on meta atomic levels that science is just beginning to learn the measure of. The symbology of the polarity plays out within the human body form itself. The Earth's human is symmetrical with two arms, two legs, two eyes, ears, etc. The body is joined into the whole by a torso and a head. It's also decided that during the evolutionary development of humanoid form within Earth's galactic family, that male and female polarities would manifest in separate but complementary body types. This serves as a reminder that in order to create, polarities must always be joined or integrated. The notion is widely held that an individual has a tendency to feel most at one when he or she is joined with another within that herogamic union or the sacred art of love, and that's unconditional love. So, again, we're talking about this moment where the tapestry of the universe and the tapestry of earth are created within the same function, and there is a microcosm to the macrocosm, as above so below. We see this in every way, shape, and form, right? No matter what it is. And what does this show us? This shows us intelligent creation. This shows us, to my opinion, and I'm not saying it for everybody, that there is a God, right? That there is an intelligent designer. Now, whether that God is the God of a religion on this earth or some function of God that you see as different, that is all within the right of the individual, right? And nothing is wrong. But again, we're looking at this intelligent design. It's a reason why when there's healers on earth healing people, it's all done energetically. And when we're giving each other energy, the body itself sets the course straight. It isn't the other person. This is showing you intelligent design, that everything that we need is already inside of us. But that still holds true on a planetary level and on a universal level. Everything that this planet needs is held on this planet. Everything that this universe needs is held within this universe. This is how we see that there is a intelligent creation, right? And that's how I see it. And again, that's my opinion. I'm not saying if that's right or wrong or if this is the way it should be. This is what I see from my research from a lot of different avenues. So let us keep going. And next, I have to switch the slide, of course. Now, what was the actual process of the dimensional infusion? There exists within the time and space fabric of the constellation of Lyra what can be called a white hole. Compare this white hole to a prism, and passing a beam of light through the prism, one gets a spectrum of light fragments into 7 visible color frequencies. When a portion of the hole passed through the prism of Lyra, the white hole, consciousness was fragmented into 7 vibratory frequencies that represent the mass consciousness of Earth's galactic family. Each fragment became conscious on all of these different frequencies and densities, or densities. You could either way you want to see it, right? So frequencies were previously experienced as being integrated into the whole, like white light. When this portion of the whole passed through the prism, it manifested as 7 aware frequencies. So consciousness also fragmented, and the fragments moved away from each other as the original, or the so called Big Bang theory symbolically suggests. The illusion thus far arose that each fragment was very, very alone. And again, that's the illusion. The whole understood that the purpose of this experience was to learn to reintegrate from a point of separation. But you have to ask yourself, how would this work? As individual souls or in groups, that fragments sought out the universe that was just created, the dimensional infusion not only created a consciousness fragmentation, but it also created the stars, the planets, the gases, and the molecules that make up the physical reality. So, however, physical reality represents only a few of the energetic frequencies that emerge from this fragmentation. And as science has discovered, matter is densified energy vibrating at a specific rate. Each aspect of the universe is made up of energy. In Earth's technology, it has not yet been discovered how to measure certain portions of reality. If technology possessed this ability, an infinite number of gateways into time, space, and dimension would be seen. For the time being, the 7 frequency levels that Earth's galactic family fragmented into by passing through that prism will be explored as we go on further into this conversation. So I have to make a disclaimer that from this point, the term density will be used in reference to these frequency levels. That's important to understand. So let us keep going. Let's talk about the first density. Vexation, pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. They were taking a lot of this information from a book called The Prism of Lyra. I cannot be credited with all of this new information. It's not new, it is from a book, but we're going over it because it's important, right? Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure to meet you. Ricky Lee, Ainsmoth, good to see you both. Please like, share, subscribe, and also please leave a comment when this is finished. They will do everything to not get this information out, to empower us, humanity, to our full and limitless potential. So let us keep going. So the first density, awareness as a point, physical matter. This frequency level is the most basic. It provides the matter and energy for the creation of atoms and the molecules. The basic life forms of mineral, water, and for example, all operating from this first, that we are all operating from this first density frequency. Humans possess the frequency within themselves as well as it makes up the basic genetic codes that reside within our body. Now, a question could be arose at this point, and I'm going to bring it back to me for a second. We talk about awakening the genetic coding within us, whether it's past life or potential ability. Does that mean that we have to access that first density level to create the awareness of that said specific DNA structure that is holding the context of this information? I can't decide whether that's the truth or not yet. I don't know. I'm sure that there is a range of densities that we're interacting with when discerning and disseminating information. But do we first have to revert ourselves back to that first frequency and enhance it to actually gain the perception of that DNA or molecular structure to gain the information from it? What do y'all think in the chat? Please let me see your answers as the question is being posed. But I digress and get back to the task at hand here. So now we're going to jump into the second density, right? Second density, awareness as a line, biological matter, development of group or species identity. The consciousness expressed by the second density, vibration, does not possess self awareness or ego. Most species within the plant and animal kingdoms exist here. However, their placement in density depends upon additional factors, including the presence or the absence of ego. And this is where we get into our structural complexities as we know them right here. And this picture is indicative of the third density to its fullest. Now, you may not agree with the symbolism of this picture, but this is the higher functioning frequencies and the lower functioning frequencies tug and warring over your consciousness and where you're going to reside within that consciousness. Right? And if you notice, it's on a checkerboard. That checkerboard is symbolic. And I would like for you in the chat to tell me what you think the checkerboard is. Now, there are no right or wrong answers. Again, this is merely just a question, and perception is everything. So, at the end of this show, I will give you my reasoning for what I believe a checkerboard is. But let us keep going. Third density, volumetric awareness, ego, loss of group identity, development of individual identity, ability to remember past and cognize the future while retaining present awareness. This is the density where human beings emerge. It is a vibration that creates the illusion of separation and thus a challenge towards awakening. Presently, humanity is going through a transition period into the fourth density reality, which can account for the many rapid changes the human race is undergoing. This is the frequency that expresses the most separation from the whole, right? It is from here that many lessons about integration are learned. This is the most intense of all levels in its cultivation of growth within the self. Cetaceans, dolphins, and whales presently exist simultaneously in third and fourth densities and are transitioning out of the third along with humanity. The consciousness primates exist in the third density as well. The evolution of primates is becoming increasingly apparent, and as one begins to observe them displaying several characteristics that were once thought as of indigenous only to humans, such as language acquisition and pathological behavior. We're seeing this more and more, right? Especially in primates, even in some canine abilities. They're learning the creation of language. Have you seen? And I'm going to tell you what I think. Right. So, have you seen when people put out those buttons and the dogs or the cats start to press those buttons as if to interact with certain patterns of voice recognition, and how they're essentially answering their family, whoever is talking to them? It's incredible to see this consciousness budding out of a primal sort of fight, flight, or freeze mode into a mode where they're starting to reflect in certain areas of ego, and it's starting to turn on and transition for them. And I wonder, in if 1,000 years, some canine and cat like, you know, species or sublevels of species might be able to communicate verbally, right? So, vexation, that is a wonderful, wonderful take on the checkerboard. I'm going to bring that up. I hope you don't mind. A checkerboard is both black or white and black squares. The black squares represent hidden or veiled knowledge. The white squares will represent the removal of all veils and wisdom transparency. I love that. That is amazing, an amazing perception into what that means, right? And my mind tends to go a little bit more towards the darker aspect of what it means and how the ego goes into. I'll leave it for later, but because it's we're gonna have a little bit of time left once we get through the presentation, right? So let's head to the next slide in the show, which is the fourth density. Now, the fourth density, containment of volumetric awareness, super consciousness, reintegration of group identity without loss of ego identity. As vibration increases, perceptions of past, present, and future become more fluid, along with the ability to interface with the multidimensional and multi-density realities. Negative oriented consciousness becomes more difficult to maintain. Presently on Earth, fourth density reality is overlapping third. In humanity's case, this accounts for the increased desire for unity, peace, and unconditional love, as opposed to the illusion of separation that characterizes third density. The vibratory rate of one's reality is stepped up, and therefore, one may be faced with personal issues in much more rapid and intense ways. And it's easy to see how this is coming into play while the thousands of individuals upon Earth who are in therapy, in substance abuse programs, and engaging in humanistic efforts to better the planet. This is the frequency of responsibility. This is the frequency when one begins to remember the encoding of free will. This is the last frequency where physical bodies are the vehicle for the expression of consciousness. Hence, many civilizations choose to spend long periods of time within this density, the fourth density reality. And again, we're moving into this. Rob Weber, also another great perspective. The white and black squares represent the conscious and unconscious. I like that as well. Very, very good. Very, very good. Pam B said something absolutely interesting here. Crows communicate with humans, also parrots. Both use our language. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And we're seeing this happening more and more, right? With certain animal groups. And I think that there's going to be an awakening within them as well. Now, again, they won't be transitioning to the fourth and fifth density. They'll be awakening to the full totality of the third density, which means that they may garner ego, and that ego may garner them communication skills at a much higher rate. So, as we keep going, now we get to the fifth density. This is experiential awareness of I as a group or of one. Sorry, experiential awareness of one as a group identity, not bound by linear time. In this density, sentient consciousness begins to awaken to its heritage. This is the density of wisdom. As one awakens the wisdom within, they very often want to share it with those who are still focused in the lower densities. Many from this realm choose to become guides for others. A fifth density being merges with its family of consciousness, or aka the oversoul, or aka the higher self, and begins to remember. This is the first density in which non physical orientation is experienced. Now, a side note, there is no clear cut distinction when transitioning from fifth to sixth and sixth to seventh densities. These densities are not physical oriented. There is much blending in these transitions. Now, another disclaimer I would like to put up is that some people can remain in the third density and transition through fourth and the beginnings of fifth. And usually that's during a meditative state. The beginnings of fifth is where we garner some of the information from the, I have to say this the right way. There is information that is being brought about by the collective, the etherical collective or the astral realm collective, and you touch on it very, very gently. And that what that does is it goes down through the densities with you back to the third, but also back to the first. And when it goes to the first, you feel that information within the DNA structures inside of your physical body, the matter cells of your body, which then rises back up. This is what discernment is bringing that information from the fifth and sixth level back down to the first and back up to the third to be digested by the individual and then to be used to create more pathways to the fourth and fifth densities. Does that make sense? I hope I explained that properly. I think I did. I'm not sure. Please let me know. The chat is open. Excellent. So let us keep going. That was a very convoluted thought, which I tried to put together as best as I could because I saw it in my mind's eye and I wanted to explain it because I think that that might be one of the ways in which the process happens, especially when we're in meditative states and we're grabbing for information that may have not been known to us before. And, the 10th density is where we start to get into the seven higher heavens, the seven higher realms of heaven, and where little g gods and big G gods kind of dwell. And they are neither physical nor even almost etherical. They are everywhere, right? And everything. So it's very difficult to pinpoint what the 10th density would be. Where we on this plane of existence deal with the first seven. That is our go-to mostly. Auric, good to see you. Good to see you. So now we're going to get into the sixth density. The sixth density, which is going to be incredible, right? So awareness as the dimensional or as the dimension itself. This has often been called the Christ consciousness, in that it displays the frequency level equal to that of the Christ or Buddha. From this frequency, a total remembrance occurs, and one begins taking responsibility for the whole rather than the self. The process of progressing the self and progressing the whole become one in the same. That is a intense way to look at things. And I believe sometimes even a 3D reality consciousness can venture into the sixth and seventh densities, but not long. You can't stay there very long because you would have to transition out of your physical form. Again, when we go into the astral body and we embark on that raising of frequency and consciousness, we tend to start to touch on the little receptors that reside in that sense of density, but we cannot stay there for all but seconds until we're brought back down, right? Fourth and fifth might be where we remain a little bit more because it's still within the parameters of physical existence. So, next, and it's very difficult to describe the sixth and seventh density because most of us here have not been there, right? Some of us have touched on it, like I said, but most of us have not resided in it long enough to get a full totality of what that means. It's very, very difficult to even wrap your head around what could consist of the sixth and seventh density, right? So let's get to the seventh. And this picture is this is the unifier. This is the epitome of what would the seventh density look like to me in my mind, right? Not so much as the physical body you're seeing, but as the creation of the symbolism that we're seeing in this specific picture. Again, pretty wild. This is wild. So, this is the seventh density is awareness as the multi-dimensional experience, the group matrix identity, also known as the social memory complex. This is the frequency of total oneness or integration into the whole. Those who vibrate to this frequency are merged in identity and become a mass conscious whole. They magnetize those in other frequencies and provide the current for their natural flow toward integration. Once the seventh density beings reach critical mass, they will progress through the prism of Lyra from our point of view. It will then be a black hole or exit point and reach the next octave where another adventure awaits. It's important to note that as portions of the whole fragmented through the prism of Lyra, each consciousness retained awareness on all density levels. However, part of the forgetfulness remained. From the most highly focused density levels, such as the third and portions of the fourth, our unawareness may occur. And again, concerning the coexistence of other levels. As integration occurs, one becomes aware of these aspects. The microcosm always reflects the macrocosm. This is visible in the coincidence of how atomic structure mirrors the structures of the solar system. It's the same with the fragmentation of portions of the whole into individual beings or soul groups. So when one incarnates into a physical body, it can be likened to a mini passage through that prism. Again, the process of soul fragmentation as one incarnates physically can be likened to somewhat to Freud's ID, ego, and superego theories, right? Pretty crazy. So, as a fetus, the soul demonstrates a first density consciousness. At that point, one is aware of itself as intricately connected to the environment. Physically, one is a mass of DNA codes with the potential to become a consciousness or a conscious human being. Since Freud did not take his hypothesis into the prenatal development, there's no correlation. If he were to have created a label that describes the fetus relationship to its environment, then it would have been the first density description. When the child is between birth and 2 years old, he or she begins to demonstrate second density consciousness. A separation begins to be perceived between itself and the environment, and its desires become externalized. This is somewhat of an egocentric point of view, which correlates this development level with the ID. What distinguishes a child's second density orientation from the third density is the lack of distinct ability to differentiate between itself and its environment. From approximately the second year of life onward, third density consciousness becomes the primary framework demonstrated. This is the development of the ego and the awareness of the child as a separate individual. These are crucial formative years, and one can see that if development is disrupted, such as through abuse or other tactics that the controllers try and use, the personality can be fragmented and perhaps become dysfunctional later in life. Many individuals retain this third density consciousness orientation of ego throughout their entire lives, right? So the development of superego or higher awareness is a typical fourth density trait, and humans have the option to develop this aspect of themselves. This is the reintegration of the fragmentation of personality that occurs through the birth process as well as the integration on a spiritual level. So, as the human race begins to move more solidly into the fourth density consciousness, it's suspected that this personality fragmentation process will become less apparent, and perhaps children will begin to display fourth density characteristics earlier in their development and retain them throughout their lives. In childhood, one must learn how to adapt and integrate into a workable framework. If one cannot do this, such as an instance, of course, in child abuse or other types of, malfeasance, psychological disorders will very often display when adulthood is reached. Third density personality integration process did not occur during childhood. Some extraterrestrial civilizations have learned to detect and transmute the seeds of pathological disorders during childhood and therefore have no instances of adult pathologies. If it's if it's understood that no matter how far an individual fragments either on a soul level or in the personality, that the way back home is always through integration, and he or she will never lose sight of this goal. And in this case, we can always go home again. And this is the presentation. Now, the explanation at the end is, imagine we teach children to reside at the upper echelons of the third density in the beginning stages of the fourth density. How far society would be now if we integrated these principles into early childhood development. Could we only imagine the potential that we would have at this moment, right? It would be absolutely exceptional to see how far those children could take it. And I believe that now, with the amazing amount of star seeds and indigos coming into this planetary incarnation and this rotation of days, nights, and years, we're going to see an acceleration of this higher end third dimensional density to the multidimensional fourth and fifth densities. And I believe that we're on the precipice of this right now. So I said I would go back and describe what I believe the checkerboard to be. Now, because I believe that there are a lot of hands in the pot trying to sway control of humanity, the checkerboard is representation of those hands. And while we can perceive it to be the conscious or subconscious, the hidden histories and the ancient wisdoms and the veils being lifted, which again, it can be a multi-purpose purposed piece of art. What I see is we're playing a game of spiritual chess. And because we're tending to lean more to the higher densities that we're representing in this presentation, we are winning the checkerboard game and we've got them in checkmate. And now they've played us into checkmate for so long that now that the tides have turned, they almost don't know what to do with themselves. So this is the game spiritually being played out within the ascension right now. And the fact that we're using all pieces on the board to sort of get them to a point to admit their own defeat, or that they're in checkmate and they take that king and they face it down on the board. And if you play chess, you know what I mean. When somebody hits checkmate, they knock the piece down to show them that we've been fully liberated within the advantageousness of free will, which we don on ourselves, given to us by the higher echelons of our own consciousness, which are in collaboration with the whole. So that is the presentation for this evening. I hope everybody has enjoyed this. I really thought that this was eye opening when I read it and when I kind of threw it all together. Please, again, like, share, subscribe. Super chats are open if you're feeling like you want to donate. All proceeds go back into the program to get us to behind paywalls, to update our information with books. It also goes to the creation of the website and the etherical workshops we're going to be doing as well. But again, just your shares, your likes, and the comments when this is over are plenty enough. Pray for us when you have it. Yes, it is the prism of Lyra that a lot of this information came from. Some excerpts were taken from it directly just because I thought that they were so in depth, and it would be foolish to not read it out as it was laid out for myself. So again, I love you all so very much. And this information can be shared across any platform. We keep it platform friendly here. Again, we're going to be doing another show on Rumble. Me and a co-host. It's going to be absolutely epic. We're going to be talking about the spirit of freedom and what it means to have free will, but also looking at the political state, but also the spiritual state. It's going to be a mix of both. And we're going to show how they represent negative emotions and fear, and how they use this as their basis to gain mind control tactics on people. It's going to be in-depth views of current events as well. But I believe it's important just as much as the 40,000 foot view. So again, I love you all. I hope everybody found this helpful and insightful. We are the community. And again, like I always say, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. If it's not going to be us, then who? Right? Who's going to do this for us? And the information is the activation. Knowing the information turns the cells inside of you on. It creates an awareness of them. They've always been there, but unlocking them is the key, right? This is like if you're a gamer, you want to unlock certain achievements so your character can look a certain way. Your character can function a certain way to use the enhanced abilities of the full totality of that character. This is the same as what we're doing now, except we have to interact with certain NPCs that are certainly trying to keep us from gaining those extra sensory abilities, right? So I love you all. I hope everybody found this very insightful, and I will see you all next time. We're going to be doing a show again in another day or two. We're going to be doing the 7th, 8th, and 1st chakras, the energy centers, and what those mean, and how it plays out in physical reality, what and how to use them to your advantage. And yeah, so everybody have a great night.